that's
It being 2:30, a quorum of the board is present, so the meeting will come to order. Because of the weather today, we will be monitoring, there's a staff person monitoring the conditions and any closings, etc. I would like to be able to conclude the meeting around 4 o'clock if we could, so people don't have to drive in the dark with the weather. But let's just proceed and see how far we get. The first item of business, as everyone knows, our Board of Elections lost our colleague and dear friend Nancy Dasick 2 weeks ago today, on January 12th. Therefore, I would like to begin today's meeting with a moment of silence in her honor. Thank you. Nancy was a member of the Montgomery County Board of Elections for the last 12 years. As such, I would like to take some time today for her colleagues here as board members and those she worked closely with to give us their remembrances. My statement on the board website really reflects my feelings about Nancy. Let me just add that I enjoyed getting to know her and having worked closely with her these past 4 years. I was most appreciative of her generosity in sharing with me her knowledge of the board and its past history, as well as the operations of what being a board member and how we worked was all about. I know she was a devoted wife and mother whose family misses her greatly, as do we all. I'd like to first ask Mike Subin to give some remarks. Mike probably worked the longest with Nancy in various capacities.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for doing this for Nancy. I'm sure her family will be very appreciative of this when they find out. I did work with Nancy for a long time, even prior to our being colleagues on the county council for 12 years. Nancy had been president of MCC PTA, county PTA organization, and we had a lot of contact there. And I'll tell you, as a colleague, she contributed a lot. Being a Republican, one of the two Republicans on the council, she many times had a different viewpoint than many of us did. But she did that in a very constructive fashion. She brought up a lot of points that many of us had not thought of, and added quite a bit to the public discourse. In fact, many times she and Marilyn Praisner sided together. And sitting on the Public Safety Committee with Nancy, she really had a lot of input in terms of firefighters and police, and sheriffs, that some of us had not thought of, and was very, very constructive there. Constructive with also helping us bring the new fire chief on, which was sometimes a very tortuous discussion. But she was always even-keeled, dealt with the differences, and unlike some people, moved on. this issue's over, it's done. Let's get on to the rest. And then, of course, you all know best of her work on the Board of Elections, both as a president and as a member. You know, many people, especially on the outside who didn't know Nancy well, thought, well, she's very dour, she can't laugh, she takes everything so seriously. But there are two things that stick out in my mind outside of her rolling of the eyes. The first one was, I believe it was in 1990, the Redistricting Commission, I don't know how, but ended up putting Betty Ann Cronkey and Nancy in the same district. Well, Nancy rolled her eyes and said, okay, I'll just move. And so the two Republicans stayed there. The other was, and really the one that showed her sense of humor side, we were having a very long budget session one day. As I'm prone to do, I got a little restless and started having a rubber band match with one of the folks from OMB. Well, one of her shots was errant and hit Nancy. And I'm going, oh no, it couldn't get worse. Nancy looked at me, she looked at the person, she looked back at me, she picked up the rubber band and hit a bullseye with the other person. So she was capable of being very serious, a lot of great contributions, and the humor side. But she was also a great person. It was good sitting down and having a cup of coffee with her or whatever and just yapping about anything and everything, family, politics, or whatever. I will miss her.
Thank you, Mike. Denise, let's just, go around. People feel free. I don't really want to call on you, so okay, start.
Well, Nancy has been one of the, I would say, stalwarts of the board, and it has been a real privilege to have worked with her. She was always fair and honest about her opinions, and as Mike said, gave a lot of constructive points, things that we may not have thought about. So I have enjoyed working with her. I thought she was a lovely person, and I also will miss her greatly.
Thank you. Do you want to go this way, or? Well, I was going to go back and forth. Okay, we'll go this way.
I'll go. So I had the great pleasure of meeting Nancy almost 25 years ago when I used to work at the State Attorney's Office. And I ran a program for kids who were involved in gangs, and we were, assured to give some funding for the program. And when we met with Nancy, she looked at me and she said, "How old are you? And does your mother know you're doing this kind of work?" Needless to say, her and I always stayed in touch, and she even attempted back then to teach me how to play tennis, and I'm very thankful for her attempts on that, but I think I have 2 left feet when it comes to tennis. And she said, "Yeah, it was okay. You need some work." Jeez, she always did that, like, geez, kind of thing. So I was, through the years, we were on an exploratory board to build BlackRock. She was very passionate about that, and one of the things I'm very passionate about is the arts. So we worked many hours trying to get the funding and working side by side, and long, conversations and coffee. And she used to call me kiddo. Always keep your chin up, kiddo. Always keep your chin up. And she was just, she was a true public servant. And the definition of a public servant is somebody who labors and works for the good of the public. And that is the true definition of who Nancy was. She worked for the good of the public. Didn't matter if she was a Republican or I was a Democrat. We agreed to disagree. She was pleasant. She was funny. The last adventure we had when we went to Asbury, and we both actually started crying because we realized at that moment how people really truly take the right to vote so seriously, even when they're, in their most the lowest points of health in their lives, but yet voting for them is so important. We both got chucked up and we held hands and we cried like two little kids. And she said, "If you tell anybody, if you tell anybody." I said, "I won't." And I was like, "I won't tell if you don't." But here I am, right? But that's who she was. She was kind. She was a great mom. Always talk, about her grandkids and her kids and her husband and I remember when we were having a conversation, she said, "When are you running for public office?" And I said, I have the kids. And she said, men don't think about that. They don't think about, they run. When they run for office, they run for office. So needless to say, I'm going to really miss that spirit of her. And she was a great example to young women like myself back then. And she's going to be greatly missed. Greatly missed. May she rest in peace.
Thank you. David?
I think Nancy was actually a great example for everybody, men and women. She was active in county affairs in 5 different decades since the 1970s, and essentially had what I would call 3 different successful careers in public service. I met her first when I was the student member of the school board in the late 70s. And she was a schools activist, and she was later the president, as Mr. Subin pointed out, of the Montgomery County Council of PTAs. She also ran unsuccessfully for the school board, I believe it was in 1982, which obviously did not stop her from pursuing public service after that. She didn't, in those days the school board was everyone runs in one big at-large race. And the top finishers, you have to have 2 for each seat. That year there were 8 people who got through the primary. She wasn't one of them. That was actually the year that Marilyn Praisner was elected to her first public office, was 1982. And she and Marilyn went on to be very good friends, later in life. Then, as everyone knows, career number 2 on the county council for 12 years. I admired her strong support of education and the environment on the council, and her belief in fiscal responsibility, and her work with the Democrats. As Mr. Subin pointed out, she obviously had many friends among Democrats. I don't know if all of you know this, but the Democratic Party newsletter this month actually includes a condolences to her family. I don't know that I've seen condolences to a prominent Republican before in the Democratic Party newsletter. And then on the Board of Elections for almost 12 years, kind of career number 3. And of course, we served together for almost the last 4 of those on the board and on the budget committee. And she and I also enjoyed comparing our notes about our experiences with the public school system. Mine having been gone from being a student to a parent, and her having gone from being a parent to a grandparent. But there was, the school system's changed a lot over the years. And we also had a really nice lunch that I remember in Rockville shortly after I joined the board. And then, in addition to these 3 very successful careers, I was honored 2 Saturdays ago to meet her husband and 4 of her 5 children at the funeral home, and to hear from them how passionate they were about what a great wife and mother and grandmother she was. None of them felt like her public service detracted at all from the attention they were getting from her, and yet none of them felt like she was micromanaging their lives, which is obviously a big thing as well. So in addition to being such a dedicated public servant, she was obviously very dedicated to her family. So the late legendary ESPN anchor Stuart Scott said about cancer, "When you die, that does not mean that you lose to cancer. You beat cancer by how you live, why you live, and the manner in which you live." I admired Nancy's fight with cancer, including her coming to our board meeting in October which I know is not easy, and how she lived her own life in service to her community and her family. And I'll miss her.
Thank you.
I remember when was the last time she ran. I can say that we had a little celebration for those victory. She lost. She came in, she rolled her eyes, said, "Oh, the strength. Why you look so sad?" So that's how she was.
Jackie?
Nancy and I love everything you've said about her, and known her for a long time, and we quietly consulted with a number of candidates together, and she always gave the best and the correct advice, even when we didn't take her suggestions. It came past we should have, she just was always on the mark. And when I was appointed here on the board, she immediately called, asked me to lunch, and the three of us went to lunch, and she imparted all of her wisdom and acted as a mentor for me here. And I appreciated the depth of her knowledge on so many subjects was just wonderful, and she was generous, and I agree with you, Mike, she had a wonderful sense of humor. It didn't, she kind of encouraged her curmudgeonly look, but she definitely many times was laughing underneath all of that. Wonderful, wonderful sense of humor. I loved her dearly, and I'm sorry she's not with us. When I went to the hospital to see her just before they brought her home, she was having difficulty talking, but I talked to her, and she would not. She understood what I was saying, and it really hurt. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin, I know you have been very close to Nancy.
Well, I've had two lives. I've known Nancy for 35 years. We've been really privileged to work with her the last 12. I echo what Mike said. I thought the best asset she had was that she was really, really intelligent. She loved to research and think about things and come up with the pros and the cons. And then she loved to actually just sit down and tell you why you were wrong. and she did it with, sort of rolling her eyes and sarcastic grimaces. But that's Nancy. She was a thinker. She waited to make decisions based upon having all the information. She loved arguing, but did it in a civilized, debatable way. And I think she's been a tremendous asset for the implementation of our electronic poll books and our early voting. But I think her biggest contribution to the board is where we sit here today. Those of us who used to be at Twin Brook and I'm not going to call it a dump, but I certainly wouldn't call it a Taj Mahal. And Nancy really took that as really a really big challenge. She worked hard with the county council and the county executive's office, and really brought the Board of Elections up to, what's commensurate with what other county offices are like. And it was, a great achievement that I don't think many people could pull off other than Nancy. So I certainly will miss her a lot, and she's been a great asset in my life.
Thank you very much. Margaret.
Yes, I concur with both Mike and Kevin and all of the members of the board. Nancy was a strong advocate for the Board of Elections and the staff, and she was a very prudent public servant that expressed her views with candor and her right sense of humor. I will personally miss her smiles, the roll of her eyes, and her invaluable wisdom that she imparted to me as the director and as a person. Nancy, wherever you are, I want to thank you and your family for sharing you with us for many, many years.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't think I'd break up.
Allison?
Well, I hadn't prepared the same thing. I didn't have the lengthy experience in working with Nancy that so many of you have had. My experience working with her has really just been limited to the last 2 years. But what I what I will always remember really looking to her during the board meetings, seeing the expressions on her face. She was, I would say, one of the most active listeners that I have, really had the pleasure to work with and to watch. You could see the facial expressions going across her face of, whatever people were saying and talking about, and pick up nuance and meaning, and what people had to say based on the look, right between her eyes of how she was reacting to what they had to say. If you didn't know that she had been on the council, you wouldn't know from just day-to-day work with her. She wasn't someone who really talked about where she'd been or what she'd done or all of, she didn't talk about herself. She talked about what was in discussion at the table at that time. And in fact, I think the only non-elections issue I ever saw her really, I made a comment about the Intercounty Connector once, and she was very interested in what my views were. So, clearly there were some issues that she continued to care deeply about. But I mean, she was really a kind soul. She was really a deep thinker and an insightful person, and was really here and the board president during, obviously a time of a lot of change here at the Board of Elections, a lot of implementations last time, and so we'll certainly miss her as we go through the next round of implementations here.
I'm sure, Margie, if you can write something, we'd like to put it in the record. I don't know if there's other staff.
I'll say that I appreciated the fact, in all the years that I've known her from Twin Brook Parkway since '97, she always took the time to visit my department and to see exactly what was happening and to try to learn what we were doing. She took the time to look at each facet of what we did and try to understand what we needed and how she could help us. I can remember when we were at the COB, her coming after she went to testify to the county council about funding, to explain to us what she said and what she thought, and to ask for any input I had. And I really appreciated that. But more than that, other than just silly things, she was a great advocate of rescuing dogs. And she knew that I used to work as a volunteer for the Humane Society when Montgomery County had the old shelter, and we would discuss dog training tips and her adoptions of her new dogs. And I know she loved her dogs and her family, and she loved the Board of Elections. She loved what she did. I appreciate that. And I'll miss her.
Thank you.
I hadn't prepared to say anything. I would say that I appreciated how she championed our work. She always appreciated what was happening with the board, and she carried that forward, and I will always admire that in her, that she took such interest in what we were doing and tried to promote elections to the best of her ability.
She did. Thank you. I don't know if there are any members of the public who knew Nancy or wanted to offer any remembrances at this time. What I'd like to ask is that we get this transcribed in a way that we could send this presented to the family. I think they would enjoy that. Whether maybe we should do both a written transcription or put just a disc, whatever is thought to be best. But I think it would be nice for them to know how she was felt by her colleagues, and most especially by the staff. I do know that she meant a tremendous amount to everybody here. I hope people will be able to attend the memorial on Wednesday at Black Rock at 11 o'clock in the morning. And we will think of Nancy often as we move ahead, I'm sure. Thank you all very much. Turning to the rest of the agenda, is there any public comment, Margie?
No one contacted us in advance, no.
Additions, changes, etc. to the agenda. I'd like to point out that as I look out there, it isn't getting any better. Depending how the timing goes with the meeting, we may not be able to do an executive session. We were planning to have an executive session, but let's play it by ear. And I went over with Margaret parts of the agenda. I think we can move through the rest of it in pretty rapid order. So we didn't have to make any changes, unless you had. Was there anything from your end?
No.
Any additions or anything from board members?
I'm going to have a new business item.
A new business item. Okay. Approval of the minutes. We have a series of minutes here. We have our meeting minutes and canvas minutes. Should we take up the meeting first? Okay.
So,
This
yeah.
is from the December 15th meeting. Were there any changes?
There was nothing that was submitted prior to the meeting, so what you have in front of you is what we've got. I know Lisa circulated that last week to everybody. I move we accept the minute.
Second.
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Then the next are the canvas minutes.
Absentee, yeah.
And we have, should they be done individually?
They can be done all together if there are no changes to them. So unless there's some changes.
Okay. I didn't see anything going back and forth, so we have the absentee one, the provisional, and absentee two. Is there any comment on any of these?
I move we accept the canvas minute.
I second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Terrific.
Correction, that's all three. We're
That would be
accepting
all three, yes, yes.
All three, thank you.
Margaret?
Okay, really to try to move this along, personnel, we have released some personnel. They are completing the there are IT individuals still completing the state-mandated post-election maintenance to prepare the voting equipment that's currently here to go to the new state warehouse. We completed processing the Green Party petition verifications, and that was submitted to the state board on Friday, January 21st. We will be doing one more data match to complete the NCOA data match to our current file to begin the confirmation notice. At this time, because there is a hiring freeze in place, we will not terminate temporary employees, but just assign them no hours in case something should happen that we're required to fill these positions. Significant meetings. We had some of the staff went to a training class at Fairfax County to observe the training for the DS200 and the Express Vote touchscreen machines. Herberto and I attended League of Women Voters, a meeting related to the community concern on voter turnout. There was a small group discussions, and there will be 3 or 4 meetings in the near future to talk about civic engagement. Allison and I attended a national joint election officials liaison meeting, which is dealing with state and mostly federal issues. The big news was that the president was able to, and the Senate confirmed, 3 members to the U.S. Election Assistance Commission. This is important because we need to have the technology system for the federal voting system standards implemented, as well as continuing to keep the voting system current with the technology standards and changes that are being made. Election reform legislation is pretty much dead. We heard from the Research Alliance on accessible voting, talking about the low literacy levels. We heard from the Department of Defense. I attended the quarterly management leadership forum, and it was all about ethics. And as mentioned in my report, the greatest takeaway was we need to modify our procedures with regards to gift giving, particularly collecting cash contributions for charities such as baby showers or going away presents, things like that. The county ethics people did clarify that to solicit contributions of any kind is using county resources and county time. On January 15th, Allison, Janet, and Chris attended the Maryland Association of Election Officials. This meeting was in preparation for the biennial conference as well as the Mayo conference that is mandated that the new board members will attend, as well as some staff. And Allison is the conference leader. Let's see. On January 16th, Allison participated in the work group related to the new voting system, the communications group. Allison is co-chair of the working group on communications. Roberto is also serving on that committee. I've been appointed to the project management work group. I also today was confirmed as assigned to the development of the regulations committee. Leslie Woods was assigned to the election judge committee, and IT manager Janet Ross has is assigned to the voting systems committee. Our operations manager is assigned to LVE requirements committee, which has a lot to do with just overall operations in the polling place. And then I've asked Margie to also be assigned to the LVE requirements because it also addresses the budget elements of the new voting system. And then Thursday I participated in the conference phone call with the Census Bureau, looking at the demographic changes within the county. The focus of the conference call was not only natural-born citizens, but foreign-born and the ethnic communities in the county. The census information talked about education levels, per capita income, and mastery of the English language. So those basically the most significant meetings.
Boy, what a schedule. I would say since the holidays, you all have been really running, haven't you?
Yeah, we have. And we have a lot to do, though. So with that, unless there's any questions, I'm going to jump to the budget.
Is Allison going to tell us, if we have time only, a little bit about how the voting procedure went in Fairfax?
Oh, that's on here for...
Oh, okay.
I'm going to speak, too. I was there.
I would have had more time. I would have noticed. I would have.
Isn't it on? Under new business, it's the new voting system.
Oh, okay.
When is the appropriate time to ask questions about this memo in our folder about the candidate whose filing was not included to the?
That's on the old business.
Old business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
It's
Great.
the campaign
Okay.
filing follow-up.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I had a question about the legislation, or are you going to?
We're going to come up to that.
All right.
Okay. All right. Budget.
On Thursday, I believe we distributed to you the latest operating budget spreadsheet. Figures are through December 31st. Be happy to answer any questions anybody might have. We are pretty much on track. There are still going to be some additional changes. There'll be a slight reduction, a very slight reduction in the overtime, as during my review of pay documents, I discovered that some individuals from the Department of General Services had accidentally charged our cost center for some overtime that was not for our group, so I'll be doing some journal entries to reverse that. So there'll be a minor modification to that.
This is something you found in going through?
Good for you.
Yeah, terrific. I'm sorry.
I have just a quickie. What were the keys and locks, $2,300 and some dollars?
Those are the doors for the early voting centers. We have to have locksmiths go in and replace the cylinders so no one else in the county can access those rooms while the equipment is
Got
there.
it. Thank you.
And then we have to put them back at the
And
end,
then we have to
too?
put 'em back at the
Yeah,
end.
so back
And this
and
is the total of that.
back and forth.
Yes,
Okay.
unless there's another bill, but I'm not expecting another bill, so yeah, that should be it.
And have we gotten all of the communication? We're still getting communication bills? 'Cause the modem is quite low right now.
Well, keep in
Compared to-
mind that the communication modems, the line item you're referring to is the SBE modem. That line item is actually right on track. There were additional monies inadvertently placed in that line item a year or so ago, but that line item is specifically and solely for the backup modem that we have here in case connectivity goes down, so that we still have communication with the State Board of Elections. And so that number is on track, and it will be significantly lower than the amount budgeted. And future budgets will not show that line item with that much money in it.
Did something take place that caused that to become lower? Or
No, the issue is the amount that was placed in the budget was more than it should have been, and that was an inadvertent. Staff requested something for a line item. I didn't catch it in trying to get everything done, and so the money went through on that line item, and that has been corrected for the FY16 budget.
Okay. Are we expecting from the county anything between now and the end of this budget year, this fiscal year, that could affect our budgets? Is there likely to be any cuts or?
I'll let Margaret piggyback, but we know, as an example, that procurement, we are restricted in procuring anything at this point. If we want to purchase anything other than your basic office supplies, we have to get permission from the Office of Management and Budget to do so before we can enter into a requisition or purchase order with anybody. As Margaret alluded to in her report, there is a hiring freeze.
The hiring freeze, yeah.
So, again, if we were to need to hire an individual, we would need to get the chief administrative officer's approval to move forward with that.
A quick question on that. How many temporary employees does that affect, the freeze?
None.
She said how many?
None?
The hiring freeze?
Well-
We're not going to, well, first of all, we are not out. The election is over. Anyone that we could have hired has to have been hired. The only thing that we have outstanding right now is to fill Betty Ann's position and one office services coordinator position. So we are obviously working, without getting into the details, that would compromise, whatever requirements there are. We're trying to determine what the manager for voter registration, that job position needs to be, and then at some point in the future we will be asking to fill that position because we need a manager there.
In terms
This is not the director. You're saying it's something below the director position?
Right.
Right. But
In terms of temporary employees, the majority of our temporaries have been let go. As Margaret indicated, most of them are not being actually terminated. They're being placed in what we have as an internal inactive status.
So they're,
So
I was just
that-
trying to get an idea of how many of those were, like the number of the inactive.
Well, certainly all of our IT people, because we don't know what the
That was
demands of
my
the new
next
voting
question about
system.
the IT.
And there are a couple of people in voter registration and a couple of people in administration. So they're not, they're not going to be working a lot of hours, but people have been retained so that if there is a need, if something should happen, we would be able to bring them back since we would not have the opportunity to hire anybody at this point.
Are those positions people specific, or is it the position you're able to hold?
Well, by not terminating them, we're people specific.
It's people specific, okay.
Oh, Allison, how many is that?
How many total?
Take me a few minutes to count it up. I don't know offhand.
Yeah. It's,
And they're all key areas: IT, voter registration. And what was the other one?
Those are the two major
The
ones.
major ones.
those are two.
So that's concerned me.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine between now and the end of the fiscal year, what.
IT is the biggest.
I'm
Yeah.
concerned of IT, quite honestly. That's what, if you could get us a number, that would be great.
Well, I think the IT number should be around 16 because that's what we hired.
Well,
Originally, we did a couple of them. I would say an approximate number for IT would be 12. Would you?
There's two that left.
And we have a general practice, particularly in between, say, a primary election and a general election, where we have a reduction in the amount of work, but we don't want to take the time that it would take to terminate temporary employees and then rehire them or somebody else, where we'll just put somebody in a 0-hour status for a period of time. And with the uncertainty around how soon we would be getting the new voting system, what sort of staffing up we would need to do, we would have the funds to do at the end of the fiscal year. A good percentage of our temporary employees we didn't terminate, but we simply put into a 0 hours work status. So in terms of the exact numbers of who we've got on board right now and how many are in a 0-hour status, I'm afraid to give numbers that would be wrong. But that's been what we've been doing.
If you can get them for next time.
Sure.
Okay.
Especially the 18 number. I think that's going to be
Anything else on the budget?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Okay, voter registration. Voter registration staff did provide a report that was sent to the board, and we can go into that later. At this time, we are nearing our post-election procedures, and we will be sending our voter file to do the NCOA Postal Service bounce to compare the change of addresses and to catch up on any additional returned mail. We were delayed because of the Green Party petition, and that took about 2 weeks to process, and we did complete that and submit it back to the state board on January 23rd. Approximately 7,462 signatures were submitted. We accepted 5,778, and 1,684 signatures were rejected. The highest number was because they signed 2 petitions, or they signed their name twice. The next highest number from rejection was they were not registered to vote. Going on to the State Board of Elections.
How many did they need, Margaret?
They need 10,000 statewide.
Oh, they need 10,000 statewide. These were just in our county.
Yes.
So
Okay.
what the state does is they take it by county, they sort of put them in batches and send them to the local boards. Local boards then process them and then send them back to the state.
Okay.
Okay. Going on to the State Board of Elections. State Board of Elections met with ES&S for a preliminary organizational meeting on January 15th. And we, the election directors, will be meeting with the State Board and ES&S on Thursday, January 29th. It is an all-day meeting, and we anticipate hearing much more about the new voting system and the general plans. I did send to you a very, very general new systems, voting system timeline, in which they, generally speaking, talks about convening the various work groups. There are 6 work groups, as I mentioned before, project management, voting system, polling place logistics, that was the committee I would refer to Chris to. Communications, election judge, and LBE requirements. Those committees will be working through the process and coordinating with the state board. The voting system hardware will be delivered to the state hopefully in March, and that's the general plan. We're hoping to see at least one. All of the election directors seem to be in informal communications amongst ourselves, are begging the state to at least get one complete system, the scanner, the ballot marking device, some paper ballots, so that we can begin touching it, feeling it, seeing how it works. The technical...
By when? I mean, do you have March.
And then April, the technical and user training for the election administrative staff. And then the new board take their oath of office, and the biennial meeting in which the new board members will get their orientation as well as introduction to the voting system. We right now are on the calendar for November 3rd, 2015 for the city of Rockville to pilot the new voting system, as well as I have been advocating to test the wireless transmission of election results from the polling places. The city of Rockville is aware of this. We met with them on Friday, and they are taking that back to their Board of Elections to make sure that they're on board, because they generally do not do this.
Do what?
Use a modem transmission. But we're asking them to allow us to test the wireless transmission.
When would this test take place, Mark?
November 3rd, 2015.
So this is their city elections?
Yes.
Right?
Is this a test of modem transmission as we've done it in the past, or is it more like the article you
wireless.
sent?
It's a new
It's like the article you
system.
sent.
Yes.
It's a new system.
The
Yep.
state
Yep.
at one point wouldn't allow wireless.
I know.
That's correct.
Wireless modem.
Are they allowing it now?
We're, again, we will know more on January 29th
Which is when the state is meeting?
with the directors.
I see.
Okay?
And is the proposal to use the system that's described in the article you sent?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not going to know anything until January 28th or 29th. Okay. December 25th, 2015, that is the intent of the state, at least based on this timeline. And again, I just pulled this off of the state's website. I have not talked to anyone, but I have been told that this is their intent, is that all the equipment will be delivered to the local boards of election, as well as all of the touchscreen and any of the old equipment related to the touchscreen will be pulled out of our warehouses and sitting in the state warehouse.
What is that date again?
By December. Obviously, for us, when you have 3,000 touchscreens and 160 training units, for them to deliver the new stuff, they have to they have to pull the stuff out to get the stuff in, because we're just in a space consideration.
And they would do that before the end of the year, I assume, to pull out the old stuff.
We're hoping that they start pulling it out in April.
Yeah.
I mean, like the spring of this year.
Yes. Okay.
Spring house cleaning.
Yes, exactly. Then the Joint Audit Committee update. Marianne, did you want to discuss that?
Yes, I think everybody was sent. Did that go out to?
Yes.
It did, to all the boards. I think we're very pleased to see that moving forward in a very strong way. It was done by the former chairs of the committee. That's, I don't believe, going to make any difference. Senator Rosapep and Delegate Gazone. Delegate Gazone is now the chair for the Senate side of the committee. He was elected to the Senate in the election in November, and he's still chairing, but on that side. The House has not, as we looked.
And I checked this morning.
Last week, yeah, they had not named their chair. But this is clearly going forward, and they're not giving the state a lot of time to respond to that. They want January 28th answers to this, and pulled out everything. I had also asked Nancy, because if you recall, what I reported, Jackie and I reported at the last meeting when we had attended the state meeting, the DMV representative, motor vehicle representative, had indicated all these changes that were going to take place in January, and would now be part of the process, which was sort of taking the wind out of our sails a bit, or I'm sure it was meant to. However, Margaret.
Yeah, the only thing I was able to find is that, and I got this verbally from the staff, and that is that the Department of Motor Vehicles clerk to voter interaction, person face-to-face interaction, only the voter will be able to select the political party, so it takes an action. And that they are changing the text, or they have changed the text as it relates to citizenship on the online, as well as the person-to-person interaction with DMV. But I pulled the minutes, and I meant to give these to you.
Is that from the minutes with the state board? Is that from?
This is the state board minutes, and
Okay.
it's really not very. It doesn't even really discuss it. So, but that's what I was told verbally. So.
But it wasn't said when, or if it had been done, or.
No, those are the only two things that were implemented in January 2015. That the voters.
So anybody who goes to MBA right now to get a new license and they want to register to vote, they will be able now to.
They will make their own
selection
political party
without
selection.
the clerk doing it. They
Correct.
would do it. Great. And then there's a new definition of citizenship, or
there's new text as it relates to citizenship
On there.
qualification.
Do we know what it says?
No, I just have this language.
Okay.
He had also spoken about the signature. Now I don't see any reference to that, but he talked about how that was going to be a requirement at the end. You were going to have to check that you had in fact read all of the above and were agreeing and swearing to, and then a signature that had to be
Done
not
by the
taken
voter.
from some other
See,
document.
That's my biggest issue is the signature process.
Maybe in my
Not copy and
impression
paste
was,
it.
see if yours was the same, that these were things that were not necessarily in place, but he was rather hoping they would be, or off the top of his head said they would be. I didn't get the impression that he told us that they were ready to go. Did you?
I got the impression that this was going to be in place in the first of the year, but
Well, I guess we can test it.
Well, we also can.
I'll go to MBA and check it out.
I mean, also hopefully, whatever they respond to the committee with will include what they've done.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it gives them.
It would be nice. I mean, it's good that they tell us that they're doing it, and I mean, I think that's
No,
a great.
they said
it's a
it
great.
in the state board meeting.
Oh, okay. Oh, it wasn't to us. It was in the state
It
board.
was at the state board
Okay.
meeting that Mary Ann and Jack.
Yeah, I mean, it would obviously be good to get some confirmation if we possibly can.
I have to renew my license.
I'm not sure where it is here.
It's not in there.
It's not.
It reports that you're there and Phil, whatever his name is, but I had to call them back and say, what are you talking about? Because it's not really in there.
Yeah.
And they said, well, we know that that you spoke and that Phil spoke. And I said, well, it's not reflected in the minutes.
Well, they also they do an audio of their minutes, so I mean they should be able to pull it up.
The letter from the Joint Audit Committee asks them to respond in writing to the Joint Audit Committee by January 28th.
Yes.
Which is Wednesday.
To outline.
Yeah, that's what
We get that copy.
Yeah.
Will we get the copy of the response?
I'm sure we can get it from the committee if the state board does not have
Yeah.
notice on the
Yeah.
response.
Because this came from the committee to
Yes.
us, correct? It didn't come via the state board.
Right.
Yeah, so absolutely we will. But I think, I feel very good that that's moving forward, expeditiously.
Great.
I agree.
Okay. Legislative report. Allison's going to cover a lot of this, but I just wanted you to know that the election subcommittee is the chairman of the Ethics and Election Law, Senate, Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs. The members are right now Senator Joan Carter Conway, Senator Karen Montgomery, and Senator Jim Rosapepe. No Republican members have been named, so I don't know the full committee membership. Now, there was some discussion, according to Mary Wagner from the state, that the chairman may or may not have an election subcommittee, as she has in the past. As you remember, Senator Roy Dyson chaired the subcommittee. And no one's gotten back to me if they have an official subcommittee. Then the election subcommittee for House and Ways and Means will be, the chairman will be, subcommittee chairman will be Delegate Frank Turner. The other members of the committee are delegates Carolyn Howard, Edith Patterson, Teresa Riley, Alonzo Washington, and new delegates Eric Ebersol, Diane Fennell, Edith Patterson, Andrew Platt. Platt is the only member from Montgomery County. And the Republican members are Kathy Avzeli, and new delegates Jason Buckle, Bob Long, and Teresa Riley. And then the Joint Audit Committee, the members are right now Senator Gus Gazzoni, Senator Gail Bates, Adeline Eckhart, George Edwards, Cheryl Kagan, Richard Mandolino, Nathaniel McFadden, Douglas Peters, Catherine Pugh, Jim Rosapepe. House delegate members are Charles Barkley, who's from Montgomery County, Pamela Bidell, Keith Haynes, Carolyn Howard, Stephen Lafferty, and Nathaniel Oakes. And I'm going to switch it over to Allison, who's been covering the election legislation.
There hadn't been much. I mean, when I looked late last week, there had only been 5 bills that had been introduced, and most of them are reintroductions of legislation from last year. There is some legislation to require new individuals who register to vote to provide proof of citizenship, or individuals who seek an absentee ballot to provide proof of citizenship. There is legislation that we saw last year to criminalize the use of fraud or force to hinder someone from signing a petition. There is legislation to rescind Maryland's participation in the National Popular Vote Agreement. There's legislation to allow the Attorney General to seek injunctive relief to prevent election law violations from affecting a pending election. There is a new piece of legislation which I gather arose from circumstances elsewhere in the state, not in Montgomery County, but where there were concerns about the degree of public observation that is permitted during the process of tabulating votes from early voting. And so there's legislation to simply clarify that that process of tabulating the early results is subject to the same public observation as any other part of that process.
Now that's sort of interesting, isn't it? Because I don't think that's the public, we announced that vote right at 8 o'clock when the polls close. But the tabulation starts in the afternoon, does it not?
What the issue was is in another county, the observers wanted to see the security tags that came off of the voting units. And as I understand it, we did provide the security tags to any observer who wanted to see the security tags when they came off of our voting units. So, those big tags.
But they don't actually see it being done.
No, they do not. No, they're not. that this legislation will not allow them to see the results before 8 o'clock.
No, but are they going to see the tags while they're still on the machine? I mean, giving someone the cut tags is of no value at all.
Right.
But are they going to be able to see the tags being taken off the machines? I guess is what they probably want to see.
I would assume
Well,
so.
Yeah.
In other words, look at the
Legislation clarifies
machine
any of
and
that.
watch the
Right.
cutting process, and then maybe even match up, here's the number, this is the number
Well,
that they...
and we could do that. I mean, we just,
Oh, sure.
I mean, we have the glass panel. And,
Well, we do that.
yeah, we do.
And the
do
reality is, if you're down there when the tabulating begins, they're put on a table that's right in front of that glass window,
Right.
and they watch the people.
They cut.
Does the public or the candidates know?
I
that
don't
they
think
have that
they know.
opportunity?
Oh, yeah, they were down there. I had representatives
were they?
from both
Oh, yeah.
political campaigns.
And what time
from-
did they come? I mean, what time did they think this...
They were here all day.
Well, they were here all day, and then I notified them that the process for early voting tabulation would
Was
begin,
beginning.
and they would go down. And
Okay.
I'm
I
drawing a
think
blank
we
on it.
probably
Alan Freeman was
are
down
we're
there for a
going to
couple
need
hours.
to notify
Diane.
campaigns in advance
Or the world. I
that
mean, just
that they
put it
that
out
it's
there.
going to start at this time.
Right.
Yeah.
2 o'clock,
Sure.
whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Alan and Diane Dillon both went down and watched the process.
I am for the Republican.
Well, that'd be easy enough.
You
to
were
do.
down there.
I did.
Okay.
No, I told them. That.
Oh, you
Sent
told.
somebody.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, there's a bill about the membership of the Kent County Board of Elections, expanding their membership. There's a checkoff box on the income tax return for the Fair Campaign Financing Fund. There was a bill summary that the state sent around, or a tracking chart that the state sent around late last week that Margaret also sent around to all of you, I believe. And it included one additional bill, which was just a general public records bill. It didn't come up in my election search, was why it was not there. Just sort of I haven't read the bill yet. I think I'm not sure how much it applies to us. And then there's the appropriations language. I skipped over the bill about Board of Education contests being on the ballot. Margaret, I think you've spoken with members of the delegation about that. Do you know what the...
In the primary, if you do not have opposition, then that particular race will not appear on the ballot. This legislation would return to the old language of long ago, way before I was here, that even if you only have two candidates, your name would still appear on the ballot in the primary.
So would it say unopposed, or because obviously there's no primary if there's only 2 people.
That's what the Board of Ed, I don't know how the Board of Ed wants it, so it'll be up to the Board of Ed how they want to design it. It's proposed by them. And then the other thing was we were contacted by Delegate L. Carr about the possibility of the General Assembly redrawing some of the district lines to eliminate some of these ghost precincts, or these precincts that have really low numbers, like the precincts that have 25 or fewer voters, so that we don't compromise their vote selection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As you may recall, we
I
had
do.
2 precincts in the primary that only had 1 voter. In these tiny
Only had
precincts.
one, was it? Did you say?
2 precincts that had 1 voter apiece.
Their results are combined with other precincts on our website, so we're not disclosing their vote.
Anything dealing with early voting? I'm sorry, early voting. Well, it's at early voting. Same-day registration. There's no pending legislation on that. That's a done deal.
There hadn't been anything introduced yet. Now, the state board is conducting its briefings for the legislature on Wednesday and Thursday, and so I'm going to go up to those, and we'll see how some of these discussions start to proceed. But I certainly haven't heard of any legislation being introduced yet.
And that in that same vein, there is also some informal communications that are occurring. They're talking about changing the primary from April 5th to April 12th. But there's no legislation.
The presidential primary.
Mm-hmm.
From April 5th to April 12th?
Yes.
A
It
week
would-
later.
would
A week later.
move- It would remove early voting from occurring over the Easter weekend.
Over Easter break.
Mhm.
That was,
I see.
So that's a big issue.
I think that has to be worked out with the
Yeah.
political parties,
Yes. So I think
the
that's
national
why,
political parties.
that's why the legislation has not been introduced.
And do you know, is Virginia and DC at the same time as
Thursday,
our
Thursday.
primary as is now? I mean,
Not now.
the April date.
It's not.
It's not. So it's
No.
it's not regional.
You have a different day.
DC is the first Tuesday in April, I think. And I don't know when Virginia is.
I'm sorry, could we go back for a second? The dates that they're talking about moving from and to for the Maryland primary? It's currently on April 7th, and they're talking about...
April 5th, I believe.
April...
Is that a Tuesday?
Oh, right.
April 5th is the primary.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And they're talking about moving it to the 12th.
Yes. Again, there's no legislation, it's just
Right.
chatter.
Yeah.
I see.
And when is the spring break? The school spring break?
Probably hasn't been set
I think
yet.
it's March.
Oh, really? You don't think?
I don't know when spring break is.
Oh, no, I take it back.
The
No,
issue-
it has been set. Spring break is March 25th to April 3rd
Why you
Is-
of 16.
Of 16.
Of
What is that
16.
again? March 25th?
March 25th to April 3rd is the spring break.
So that's the problem with early voting, I think. Yet again,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
We're always getting,
I'm also looking to see if my calendar says when Easter is. Yeah, it looks like Easter is on March 27th.
This one's that one, yeah.
Juggling all the holidays, I think the new,
Yeah,
with
it
the
is on
new
the
date,
27th.
the last day of the canvass, that night at sunset then would be the beginning of one of the Jewish holidays. So I think they managed to avoid most of the holidays, but just barely with
If
the
they
April
move-
12th date.
I see. So Passover is later, is what it sounds
Yes.
like. Because usually it's right around Easter.
yeah,
But
sure.
Every now and then there's a leap month, and that's what causes it to come later.
Well, and it's leap year, isn't it, 2016?
No, I'm talking about the Jewish calendar.
Oh, it's a leap month? Okay.
Some years they have
Some
a
years.
different day,
Yeah.
Yeah, Passover is on April 22nd. The first night of Passover is
that a
is
Friday?
April. It's a Friday, yes.
Okay, so, and that's
that makes sense.
absentee to
Absentee
canvas
too.
So absentee
that-
to canvas would be
in the morning.
in the morning. Oh, I see.
Okay.
Oh.
So it just barely misses it.
If
Yeah.
they do it on the 12th.
Even if they, yes,
Even
if
if
they
Correct,
do
yeah.
it on the
They
12th.
do it on the 12th.
They do it on the 12th, they missed Easter,
And
and
they
we're
miss-
right before.
And then right before
Literally
Passover.
Literally
Hours.
hours
Wow.
before,
Wow.
which is also Earth
So
Day.
Passover's really late that year, huh?
Yeah.
Compared to
It's a month after Easter.
Right. Easter is
Yeah.
also early. Easter is in March.
Yeah.
Which is usually in April.
But
Well,
yes.
it varies.
Yeah. Well, they all vary.
I mean, ours,
But yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
We go
Okay.
from like mid-March to mid-April, you know, back and forth. But that's really a leap.
Yep.
You had a question on legislation, Denise?
I just wanted to know any news on support for any of those bills that you listed.
I don't have any information on it, no.
Okay, thank you.
Support in terms of,
Supporting the proposed legislation, the bills.
The only piece of legislation I know that anybody's supporting is allowing Kent County to expand their board.
Okay.
to do what?
County to do what?
To expand their board
From 3 to 5.
from
yeah.
3 to 5.
Even the little ones, huh?
You're jealous of us.
Oh, maybe we should expand.
Maybe we should have Ken.
Your timing is impeccable.
Can we do it at this meeting?
Yeah.
Okay. That's it with regard to legislative reports.
Okay. Kevin, board attorney report.
I don't have much to add. There's no pending litigation. I'm unaware of any threatened litigation, and Margaret's already talked about the Green Party petition, which has been processed and will be handled by the state.
Right.
Okay, great. Old business. The first item is the campaign filing follow-up, of which we have a letter here from Chris that came through Alan Banoff. Okay.
Is Chris here?
Chris,
I'm here.
are you going to speak to this?
Well, after our report from Mr. Banoff, I contacted the candidate who had a problem with their filing.
Who is the candidate?
It was Ms. Goldman, Marjorie
Okay.
Goldman.
Yeah, okay.
And she explained to me that she had followed through. I had apologized. I explained that I had heard that there had been some controversy, some mistake regarding the filing. She talked a little bit about what she remembered happening that day, and basically why she had brought it forward is that she wanted to ensure that this didn't happen to another candidate in the future. Through the conversation, we discussed what had happened, and I looked at records. She did file on the 21st of February in the morning. The electronic version showed that she had submitted all of the proper paperwork. What happened is, from what I can see, is that there was a statement of organization. The statement of organization is not a document that we hold here at the board or that is part of the candidate filing process as far as we are concerned. We are told by the state to collect that document, or at least make sure that that document, statement of organization, has been submitted to the state. The statement of organization is the financial piece that is creating the entity for the candidate. That document was submitted that day. It was checked off on the electronic record as being submitted. From conversation with staff and with Ms. Goldman, what I envisioned happened was that we had the statement of organization in front of us, and I have an idea it was handed back to the candidate rather than our making a copy. And so then our files were accurate other than the statement of organization. So then, consequently, an organization statement was not sent to the state. Or the second alternative would be that it was lost in the mail, because we send that document to the state.
It's not sent electronically.
No. We could scan it and send it electronically, but it goes through the mail because it has the original signatures.
Can we do both?
We can do both. And that, I think, is really process, is that it's faxed over as well as then the original goes by USPS mail.
So I just want to be clear on what the process was.
Mm-hmm.
So when the candidate comes,
yes,
okay, so they have to file the statement of organization, right? Because
yes,
it's required by the state.
Yes.
Okay. They file that with us.
On the bottom of the document, it asks that that be submitted to the state.
Okay.
In an ideal term, situation, that statement of organization would be submitted to the state. Once that is approved by the state, then they can go forward with filing as a candidate. But in most cases, when they come here, they bring their original statement of organization with them.
Okay.
And then we take the initiative to get it to the state.
Okay.
So they
it's
don't.
not-
Do
so-
they have to come here?
Wait, I'm not done, sorry. So the process is, wouldn't it be better then to avoid that? Because it's not clear to me still. Because if I'm a candidate, I'm under, I would think you represent the state. I mean, that would be my presumption without knowing all the nitty-gritties behind it. So if I come here, in my mind, I'm filing with the state because I'm giving you a statement of, So would it be better for them then just to go straight to the state and just file with them directly? Or you do this as a favor to them since they're already here and they already have their original statement of organization. We'll take a copy of it and then, as a favor to the candidate, we'll avoid you going there and we'll send this for you. I'm just trying to get a clarity.
As a convenience, that is the process. At one point, we, the county, the local board of elections, were advised by the state or directed by the state not to accept the statement of organization, that they needed to submit, the candidate needed to submit
Directly.
that directly to the state. That is what the process is. I think there was a lot of realization through the
Not very
process
efficient.
over a couple cycles that was inconvenient to local candidates.
Yeah, it's not very
So they bent that directive and
They
told,
bent it with like a wink bent it, or they bent it with saying, okay,
well,
so now when they
Did they-
come,
did they take it back?
finally they said to us, you can accept
Okay.
the statement of organization, but make sure that
it gets
we
sent to
have-
us.
have it.
So something
because
happened in that
initi-
process.
That statement of organization is what initiates their financial account.
Okay.
Sure.
So wouldn't it be then in our benefit that when the candidate comes to us and they file it, that one, we keep a copy here, two, we give a copy to the candidate, and three, that we might scan the original and send it forward to the state and then send the original by mail?
That is the process.
Oh, okay.
There was a downfall somewhere in
Okay.
this process,
Okay.
and when I went through trying to unravel it, the candidate didn't have a copy. We did not have a copy. The state did not have a copy.
But there was a record.
But there is an acknowledgement that
That it was
there was a statement of organization.
But the normal-
How did she get on the ballot if you didn't have these?
Because it's entered in through Electrac. And so this statement of organization, in a perfect world, we should have been able to scan it and attach it as part of the Electrac system. But it wasn't one of the required documents at the time they developed the Electrac system for the 2014 elections. Now, I don't know, I know they're changing the Electrac, correct?
Correct.
So this is one of the documents that we require?
This document will
Like that.
always be required, or a modification of that document. This document, statement of organization, creates their entity, their campaign entity. Now, of course, there could be modifications. We are now going to be recording their filing on MD Voters, which will be the state software. It will not be a separate software. But I envision, we haven't been told that there would be any change in documentation. We will still be collecting the same documents that we have in the past.
And is there a way you can track it after you have filed as a candidate to make sure then that the state gets all your documentation?
What normal process would be a phone call to the state? We have just faxed over a statement of organization for candidate. And then there is that fax confirmation, as well as we have emails going back and forth. For some reason on this particular,
Didn't happen.
it didn't happen.
But so, Chris, does at the end does the state though send something to the candidate?
That's what I
saying-
want to know, like a
saying,
confirmation.
This will confirm that
Yeah.
all of the requisite
Already
documents for your
filed.
filing are on file.
And this is all the records we have
What?
and all the documents we have, and these are the ones that you don't have.
Well, and do we do
What-
that?
What the statement of organization does is creates their financial account.
Right.
Then they should, their treasurer that is designated on the statement of organization should be receiving documentation from the state. And that implements the filing of the reports. What happened in this, as I look at the whole process, this candidate was part of a group, part of a slate. It was at large. It was the Democratic Central Committee contest at large. And usually in those instances, there's an individual that helps these people through the process. And that treasurer might be treasurer for several individuals, or treasurer
whole
for
slate.
each person on the slate. Somewhere it fell down.
So the normal process is we mail it, we give a copy to the candidate, and we send it electronically. Is it by fax or is it by email?
Fax, it goes by fax, and then the original goes in the mail. And that's how it should have gone. And since we don't have a physical hard copy, I envision that the original went back to the candidate. We make a packet of everything that we prepare for the candidate and hand it back to the candidate. I have an idea that the original went in that packet.
Do we have,
But she doesn't have it, right?
Right.
Does the board have the capability of scanning and emailing rather than faxing, and then you have a record of the email sending the document?
Yes, we can do that.
'Cause I mean,
But
you know,
again, we are the campaign finance software, the election management software for the candidates is changing. There's a new system that's going to be in place for the 2016 election. And yes, we certainly can include, transmission email that is scanned. But the difference is that the new campaign finance software is going to, we're going to automatically, that campaign organizational statement is going to be part of the entire package that goes electronically to the state.
and if the system works correctly, that's great. If it doesn't, as it didn't in this instance, I'm thinking that it would be good to have a record of our at least sending a copy to the state if for some reason the transmission doesn't happen. And that's all I was thinking of.
I agree. I would like to see the folders as comprehensive as possible. We're doing this electronically, as Ms. Jurgensen said. Hopefully this new software is going to manage our documentation, but it would also be reliable to have a backup
It's just
acknowledgement
it's
of
just incredible
confirmation.
that this was not part of the packet originally. Like, this is such an important document that for them not to have it being part of it originally, it's just...
Well, it gets
it
even
wasn't.
crazier because she has lost it at her end as well. The candidate has no record of it.
Wow.
Yeah, but
I mean, if in fact it went back to her,
Right, but-
so we don't know.
But usually the government is expected to keep records that are
Well,
filed.
yes, they along the various lines.
Yeah, I mean, other than things that are very old, in which case you'd expect to have some kind of.
Well, I think this is
schedule
something
for
we
that.
want to let's flag when we see what the new system is going to be, how it's intended to operate, and kind of walk us through it and see that, well, remember the problem with the...
But it would be simple to have a checklist on our part,
Right.
that we could check off everything.
And
give them as
Which
well.
we did.
We
do.
do.
Which we did in this case.
And then
Because the paper disappeared.
the electronic version, the screen that the individual who's filing sees in front of them, there is boxes that need to be checked.
Right.
Statement of
Okay.
organization and
Other-
identification. Different requirements. There are check boxes on this new software.
Good.
Okay.
Okay?
More to follow. Thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much, Chris. Is there any other old business? Okay. We're doing pretty well with our time here.
Well, I'm sorry, very quickly. Last time, did we talk about sending a survey to the judges about elections? Did I dream that? We were going to talk about it this time. Did anybody recall? Maybe I had a dream.
We,
I think you dreamed it.
yeah.
I dreamed
I think it's a
it,
good
okay.
idea.
Okay, no, sorry. I know we talked about when we had, and I thought we were going to like do a survey on how things went on election day. for
Oh,
the
well, they
judges.
do that
We do that.
routinely,
Okay.
and that report is, as I understand, it's in the February
March.
meeting.
On the March.
March
okay.
meeting?
Election judge.
So you did mention
Oh,
something
okay.
like that. So I mean, dream it. Okay.
Well, I mean, that's always been, I mean,
Done.
we get the survey from them, and, yeah.
Good.
And then they're all also rated,
Peer-to-peer.
the judges.
Does that survey include information about the transmission of results and any suggestions they may have for that?
Like to make things quicker
Because
for closing.
I would think that would
We're
be
gonna
something,
have a
yeah.
whole new system.
Okay.
We're gonna be talking about that, and that's one of the things we can talk about.
Okay,
But,
fine. We can wait. I can wait.
You know, and we might want to, you know, reach out. I would think there would be questions on there for their closing, et cetera, et cetera. The closing's going to be different, I think, I hope.
Yes, it will be.
Sounds like
Very
it's
different.
white.
Okay.
Yeah.
When do you expect the new books for training to come out? For the new
Not till,
2 seconds before we have to use
I was thinking more like October, September, October.
You know what I suggest? The next election is 1.5 years. It's not that long. Why you don't bring the judges group by group and make it like a social event in the evening, like a pizza or something? Talk about the problem, not the problem. And when the new system comes, show them around. I mean, prepare them now. Don't wait the last minute and do all the training. Can we do that?
Well, first we have to get the training material from
Yeah.
the state that has to be signed off on
A lot of
by
it's
the
the
Attorney General.
timing. We
So we're
And it's
not
funny.
going to see anything from the state related to any of the election materials until these work groups have an opportunity to go through their steps. And that's what the orientation will cover at the biennial meeting that the board will attend. And then at some point, yes, we will be bringing the election judges in. Because quite honestly, the budget that you passed for the upcoming election, we are going to be relying on the election judges to be part of our outreach team. So they will be part of the process.
Nahid, is your suggestion separate and apart from the training? Are you suggesting
Yeah, it's-
like a
it's
social
separate.
event
Yeah.
in addition?
Yeah, she
Just
said, yeah.
informal gathering and talk about the problem. Of
Good.
course, now we have a new system. It's a
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
problem.
But-
I thought one of the things that you know, some of us have been kicking around the idea. Training is such a big issue, so important, and where you know we saw problems. That one of the ideas was to bring in the sort of best of the best. I mean, as I say, people get rated, you know, the judges, and we have a category,
ones
the
first,
excellent
yeah.
and, you know, very good and on down. But as early as possible, when we have the equipment and we have the manuals, to start bringing in the judges, starting with that highest level group to, you know, get their assessment, to, you know, walk them through to sort of see what is going to be ahead of us in terms of
Practical
training and
Practical training is more important. I'm reading those
but to
two
do
books.
it as a I
The
mean,
judge's book
casual.
is so complicated.
Give a pizza night
It's
or
not really helpful. I mean, practical training in our case is more important than reading those two manuals.
Would you have to pay them if you did that?
yeah. Well, that's the other
We
issue
give them a
is
little bit of
that
money. We can find the money. I mean, it's not that much. $10,
You-
$20. How much do we pay them?
$440 million deficit for the county right now. Okay, so finding money. I mean, I'm doing very good to make sure that no further cuts are made to this agency. All right, so I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you. And in fact, in 2004, we did exactly that. We brought in the best of the best election judges for, after they had an opportunity to work with the units, to give us recommendations as to how to best implement. And I certainly am open to bringing them in before they have an opportunity to touch the equipment and actually use it. And that might be something that we can do with some of these judges coming out of the City of Rockville election. But, I mean, it will be, it's a learning curve for all of us.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, as a former judge, I think we're judges, not so much for the money incentive,
Right.
but really for the civic duty.
Right.
So I would say that a lot of them will feel that since we're going to be changing to a new voting system and so on, that they will feel that civic duty to come in and be like, yeah, I would like to be knowledgeable as much as I can, so everything goes down smoothly.
well, and it's all how you word things too, and the outreach, by saying to them,
So I totally
you are a valued part of this operation, and blah 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 blah.
It also may be that you encourage it but not require it.
Yeah, I mean,
and
yeah,
that may make the difference for pain.
Yeah, yeah.
We visit the
Okay, it's
Virginia.
4 o'clock. My weather person has
Yes.
just told me that the temperatures have declined about 6 degrees, and snow is beginning to collect on the streets.
Where? I don't see it.
That's
Stop there.
on my driveway, Marianne, in near Damascus.
Is this WTOP or what?
This is, they've been watching on the internet as well as they've been eyeballing around out.
Okay.
I don't want to give a commercial benefit to a particular app, but there is a weather app for one of the local TV stations that says that Gaithersburg is supposed to have what it describes as light snow for the hours of 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock.
Okay.
With temperature 32 at 5 and 31 at 6. And then at 7, it changes from light snow to snow showers.
Okay. Well, let's just we're
finish.
almost there. Yes, Mr. Subin.
What Ms. Jurgensen just said is consistent with what Chris Voss, the Director of Homeland Security for the county, told me very shortly before I came here.
Okay.
And we have private forecast.
Oh.
Chris is usually pretty good.
Okay.
Okay.
No more.
We
speakers.
had item 9 is an item that can be put over to the next meeting. It's the report on that, which means we could finish up today's meeting with the new voting system, the new business item that David wanted, and then folks could decide whether you want to do executive session or not. Is there agreement to put item number 9 over till next month? Those two reports.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and does that include the report from the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund?
What is that under?
I just like to acknowledge it. I think it was
sure, yeah.
very quickly. They took their time to go and do a polling, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. I think we should be proud of the results because they found that interpreting was available and accessible to all, and that they had a 97% favorable total of voters who felt that they were able to vote without any difficulty, and that was with their language barriers. And a significant number of them were first-time, not first-time voters, but were non-native English speakers, and 73% were natural foreign-born citizens. So I think this speaks volumes of some of the advancements that we have been making with LEP and providing interpreting services, and I think that also goes a lot to say to the judges in these precincts in the training.
And it speaks well of our recruiters.
Absolutely. So
hitting those targeted.
So anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge that document.
Yes, thank you.
Should we say thank you to them?
I think we should send a letter and say thank you.
Yes.
Because I think
Well, the letter was directed to us.
So a nice, note
Senior
to
board
say
member.
thank
Yeah.
you. I think will be
Okay.
Thank you.
Margie, would you, can you draft a thank you on that for us, please? Thank you. Okay, so item 9 then is going to be put over till February. New business, we've already done some talking about the new voting system, but I think this is the opportunity to talk about those of us who had a chance to get to Virginia in one of the last snowfalls and what we observed. You went in the middle of the day, right?
No, right before you guys.
Yeah. I went at the end.
I found it very easy, actually. I don't know why I found it easy. It was very easy to work with, and we don't need so many judges to take people to the voting booth and tell them put this one in and wait and all of that. They just go like behind the booth and sit down and do the paper ballot and do the scanning, and somebody is there to help them, and then they go. It's very simple.
Except, I don't know, and we'll have to, once we see the system, because of course Virginia has different laws than Maryland to start with. And the very first
Voter
one that
ID.
you encounter is voter ID.
Yeah.
And with the voter ID, when the person comes up to the poll book, they are presenting their ID, which is, looked at and compared with what they have in the poll book, and then they're given their ballot. What they don't have that we have is the printed where you are signing, and swearing to the fact that you're who you are and you're eligible. And then the question becomes, when the person takes their ballot and goes to a voting place, are they still going to have to give that little slip of paper to somebody?
Yes. Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
Those are all legitimate and good.
So
questions.
that was nothing we could observe because they do it differently.
Or 3 ballots in a primary election.
Pardon me?
3 ballots in a primary election.
Right.
Making sure that the
was
voter
a
gets
special
the
election,
correct.
but-
I get a Democratic ballot. Margie gets a
Yeah.
Republican ballot. Somebody else gets a non-affiliated ballot.
Oh yes. Well,
That'll slow the line down considerably.
and they did not have, and I had the opportunity to talk to some of the other observers there, and one gentleman, he was actually there to vote, but he is an election judge routinely. And he told me that they never have many poll books. They never have more than like 2 poll books at a precinct. So that's where they get their lines. I agree with Naheed. We wouldn't have a line at that point. They had, when Allison and I were there, we got there at about 5:30. The polls closed at 7 o'clock. The first thing we encountered when we came in, the election judge came up to us with her hair on fire saying, they ran out of ballots. And I said, I turned to Alice and I said, oh, this is good. We can see a crisis in action.
Hopefully not too loud.
But no. But I thought, well, it's always good to see a problem. The first thing I observed was they have walkie-talkies, these powerful walkie-talkies where they are in touch with their election office. And so there's instant back and forth communication going on. So folks were already en route with the additional ballots. There is a backup system. And the backup system is there is a voting machine, a screen voting. There is a ballot for that, but that ballot is it's a different shape, and it's just a plain sheet of paper. It doesn't have the names on it. And that gets inserted into this machine, and your the ballot comes up, and then you vote it on the machine. It reproduces it onto the ballot, the blank ballot. You get it back, and then it, like the other ballots, goes into the scanning machine. They had quite a good turnout. Now, certainly there was only one item on the ballot. This was a special election that was electing one office, it's not totally representative of what an election would be. But the scanning device was terrific.
May I ask you?
No fear of lines there that I saw. It's very quick.
To go back, I walk in, I go to the poll book. They hand me a paper ballot.
Yep.
With the question on it.
Yep.
I go someplace to a booth and I put my check.
You go to like a big long table.
And then I put it into the scanner.
Yep.
Does that same one come out? It scans it and then that comes out and I take it out?
No, that goes into the bottom of the machine. This is the paper trail. You just get an I voted sticker. That doesn't change. You're not going to get anything, but your vote is scanned, and then the ballot is there. So it can be recounted.
So you're handed the ballot when you check in, essentially?
When you check in.
And so the people that check in, let's suppose that it's one of our 9 early voting centers, they have to have every ballot style available to hand?
No, it's going to be a different system for the early voting sites.
Ooh.
It's going to be what's called a ballot marking device that will have, when you check in, we'll be able to, on the poll book, and we haven't seen this part. This is the as to be determined part. But what will happen is there's a ballot marking device, and Margaret Jurgensen's ballot will be programmed for maybe ballot style 39D. And what will then come up is, for this particular election, would be President, Senate, my congressional district, and school board races. And when I check in, then as I understand the system, they will feed it through this new printer that's going to be attached to the poll book. And then I will have this slip of paper that looks like this, except it's got a clip on this end. The edge is clipped. And I'll walk over to this ballot marking device and insert it. And using an electronic pad, it will mark my choices.
So this is on the machine you're talking.
This is the ballot marking device. Right.
Oh,
so you don't mark it
that's
yourself.
not good.
No, it'll be great, because if it works the way it's supposed to.
No, it's very, we saw that, and it's slow.
The difference between what those of you who got to go down to Fairfax County and see their system and what we'll be getting is this. So in the Fairfax County environment, you walk in. We have one of the touchscreen machines, the express vote machine, that is the accessible marking device. But for the most part, most voters are coming in. They're getting the paper ballot. They're getting the paper ballot. They go to the booth. They fill it out. They take it over to the scanner. They drop it into the ballot box, with it being scanned at the top of the box as it goes in. So they're getting a full-face digital scan of that ballot that can be looked at for audit purposes. But the actual ballot is sitting in the box. And that's, 90-95% of your voters are checking in, getting their paper ballot, marking it by hand, and then dropping it into the ballot box.
When that's scanned,
same
can
thing
I
here.
see my
Margaret's
vote?
saying you can't do that
For the voters who use the accessible machine, who use the express poll, in Fairfax County, they get a plain card. It looks a lot like a punch card. And they just take that plain card over to the touchscreen, over to the express vote machine, and insert it. And the machine is only programmed for that one ballot style in that polling place.
Right.
So every blank card that you put in it all day long is going to mark that style of ballot, which then you take over to the scanner. there's a difference between that and the generation of equipment that we're going to be getting, which is newer, which has an additional peripheral device. This is an additional printer at the poll book where you check in addition to the printer that we're using now to check in and you sign, your oath on that voter authority card. In addition, there's a second printer that will be hooked up to the poll book. And the function of that printer is basically like the voter access card is now, where when you put the blank, it's the same blank card, but at the check-in, the blank card will be put into this printer, and it'll print a header at the top that gives you the ballot style. So the machine isn't only programmed for that ballot style. The machine can be programmed for every ballot style in the county. But when the voter checks in,
So the
gives you the right ballot
judge
style.
sitting at that poll book, you say Republican or Democrat or other or whatever, and they push a button that puts that at the top of this
prints
blank
on the
card.
top.
Your ballot style.
Yeah.
And
then when you take it over to the machine and feed it in,
And the machine
then it knows what
reads
ballot
it.
style it reads it. And at early voting, we envision that machine will be the machine that voters will be
Wow,
using.
that's a
But
nightmare.
in-
How
and
many
yet-
of those are we going to have?
Well, it will be attached to every poll book, and as you recall,
no, the
there's-
voting machines I'm talking about.
Oh, there'll be 250 for all 9 locations. So
For early voting.
Because
Just
the
for early
program,
voting.
it's just a ballot marking device. It's not a touch screen like we know them today, where it's actually
No, but
holding
it
the
creates your
votes and-
ballot style.
Right, if it creates the wrong ballot style, there has to be we have to have some way of dealing with that.
It's just a pencil, basically. It's a very expensive pencil, but you feed the ballot in, you mark it using this device, you take it out, and then you take that same paper over to the same scanner and scan it.
Do you
So
want
your
to
ballot
touch
is
a
not
different
on.
machine than what we saw?
It's the same machine we saw. The only difference is
And we
the-
saw those machines not working well.
Yes.
Thank you. That was only being used for backup. So now you're
candidate.
talking about that's how you're going to have to vote for early voting?
They were having issues as we were there observing, and I personally attributed what appeared to be happening was that voters were kind of on their own without a poll worker helping them put their card in, and they appeared to be putting it in the wrong way. Flipping it around, or there appeared to be kind of a user error issue that was causing a jam. That was my personal suspicion of what was going on in that situation. It kind of led me to believe that just like we do now with voters who are using the touchscreen, that we would probably need to escort the voters who use that device to it and assist them in just making sure that the paper gets inserted in the correct way.
Allison, do
so
you
that it
touch
doesn't
that with your
skip.
finger like you did the other?
Yeah.
May I ask you, when you were in Virginia, did you see occasions where they would fill out the ballot and then go to scan it and the scanner wouldn't read it?
Yes, yes.
No, I
saw
didn't
that.
see that.
I saw it, but one, as you said, but one person was standing by scanner. So
Yeah.
therefore the voter were not alone if something wrong. It came back. I saw that. When they put it in, it came back.
I wonder how the votes are going to get scanned. For example, for absentee, what you all saw, those really sort of crazy ballots where someone didn't fill in the oval, but they put yes next to someone and they
Right.
circled it, and
Or
there
they
was a
wrote it
voter.
in.
There's a voter intent issue. How is this machine going to? What are the specs going to be?
What's going to happen is it's going to be rejected.
Yes.
There'll be a message that says why there's an what's the word? they
Yeah.
use? Something mark.
Right.
And so they'll give it back to the voter, and they'll review that you need to fill in the oval. You can't check. You can't put an X. You can't write next to it. You can't circle it.
So
And
now
they'll have to-
I got someone next to me checking how I filled out my ballot.
No, you'll have.
They cancel that one and
That's the
issue
training
another
issue.
one.
That's the
training
risk.
That's the outreach. Why we emphasize
all of which
so
translates
important.
into time too.
And
Yeah.
money.
I mean, need a lot of practical training. They cancel
Yeah.
that vote and then issue another one for that person.
You have
Yeah,
to.
because
Yes.
that wasn't an atypical thing. You saw it during absentee. I mean, that's what you all spent a lot of time doing was
Yes.
what is this? What did this voter intend by what they did here? Because they don't all just fill in the little ovals.
Oh, no.
A lot of them put the big check marks and circle and
The
then
machine.
Write
Yeah,
messages.
fill in the oval and then they
no,
write
we-
the person's
we
name in
remember.
underneath.
Not this one.
Well, and then you have the people
remember.
who might want to do write-ins.
Right.
Oh, there's a
regulations-
process for writing.
The regulations have to be written, so I don't know that, what I've experienced will be the same as where we're going to end up. And I know this is newer technology. It does capture that full face scan. So there is the ability to go back to the actual ballot faces and look at issues, resolve issues later. But generally, certainly when I worked in the district and we had optical scan technology in the polling places there, the way that the machines were programmed, unless you had an actual overvote in the ovals, or unless you actually had a stray mark that went through the timing marks on the ballot, it would not kick it back. It would just accept, or unless you had a completely blank ballot. It would scan, it would accept it, that vote is cast. And it would only ever, ultimately later if you go back for a recount or something, that you would ever identify that somebody had circled a name or somebody had written a write-in without checking the oval. That's kind of the baseline expectation, I think, with the optical scan technology. Whether this provides us some additional tools to catch some of those situations, I'm not sure of.
Is there another election using this equipment coming up soon that we could, some of us?
We know that there's another election in the spring in Fairfax County.
No. But they're not going to have this latest
I
version that
haven't
you're
found
talking about.
anybody who has these printers yet. I'm not entirely sure if anybody.
See, that's what we need to see is where the whole setup.
Yeah.
And in the testing, and I mean, and to what degree have these been tested with the kind of situations we're kicking around here? Marking up a ballot in a crazy way, suddenly folding it and be like, oh, no, you don't fold it, and opening it, will it still go in? You have to, test all that kind of thing and see
There's a lot of jurisdictions out there using the DS200 scanner. The fewer using the wireless transmission that we're looking at. And I don't know that there's much of anybody out there yet using the express vote with the printer that we're getting. That's
with the
new,
printer.
That's the new
Yeah.
Are we going to be the first jurisdiction to use that?
A what?
Are we going to be the first jurisdiction to use that? So we're the guinea pigs?
Again.
I'd like to think.
Again?
It sounds like Rockville
Bleeding
is the
edge.
guinea pig for their,
Yeah,
for their musical.
Rockville will be saying
Rockville
it
will be the
first.
ones, yeah.
Can Rockville say no? Can they come back and look at them and say, no, I don't want to use them?
They could.
No, I don't think so.
Well, and there's.
They're
I mean,
sovereign
technically, yes, they could do
Whatever
whatever.
they want.
We are going to have a mock election in October, statewide, where we're going to.
Oh, we are
Yeah.
statewide.
Mhm. That is part of the
Mock
part of the
How does that
calendar.
work?
Well, that's to be determined. But we had a mock election when we implemented the voting system, the previous voting system, with Montgomery and Prince George's County, and Allegheny, and Dorchester.
I think we'd like to hear
Well,
about the mock election.
The good news is that what we did observe, which is certainly a part of what we're going to have. What was really nice was the shutdown of the precinct. That was very slick and very fast. I mean, their poll closes at 7 o'clock. By 7:35, they were they phone in their vote count in Virginia. Republican and Democrat pull out. You just put a key in the machine, and it just remember one machine, not 20 different ones. Brrr, out comes the vote, and then and then they match up. Of course, they have the provisionals and
Right.
all of that they put together.
But in that instance, it was for one office and one election.
One office, that's right.
What do they do with provisionals? They don't count those and send the vote in. They just send the vote in out of the scanner.
Provisional ballots are paper ballot that go in an envelope. that have
Right,
to be
right.
certified.
Right,
they're
but
not-
but they don't at 8:15. I mean
No.
7:10. They just send in the scanner.
They
vote.
send in how many provisionals they
Right,
have, but they don't
right,
know.
right.
They don't know how they're voted. But by 8 o'clock, the whole place was shut down. I mean, all the little cardboard things were packed up, and
So when is their election when they have more than one office going on? That's
She said
June?
in June sometimes.
because it would seem like that would be
Interesting.
another indicator, maybe a better one, when they have multiple offices.
yes.
and-
But they have a back
And a
office
primary.
scanner. They had a back office scanner.
although their primaries are also interesting
They
because
need
they
to
don't have
back up.
party-affiliated voters.
that's right.
So
Back
They're open
Yeah.
primaries, so
Yeah.
they don't have the issue of, oh, you're not in the right party. Yeah. So,
Can
anyway.
we use the little booth things that we had our voting things in for this, or do you have to get new individual booths? Just a little
That's
side
that's
question.
to be determined also. That the booth question is the state board is.
It can get expensive.
Yeah.
State
The
board.
way they did it in Virginia was just a long, you know, 8-foot table with the cardboard
Dividers.
dividers.
I was just thinking about the things that we have the voting machines in now. If we could use those booths, but that, never mind,
No.
that's the question.
Because you'd have to take
It's all
the
part of
TS
the
unit
same,
out,
yeah.
It's all part of
and
the
it
same
would
thing.
scoop.
Okay.
It'd be like writing into your suitcase.
Well, let's stay tuned, and you know, obviously, I think Margaret, as you follow along in getting these meetings this week that are going to be flushing out a lot of this, please keep the board informed. You know, because it's going to happen quickly, and we want to stay on top of the kind of questions that you know you think about as you hear, oh, this is what they're going to do.
Can I ask one more quick question? Is it just Fairfax that's using the system, or is all of Virginia using the system?
It is not a statewide system. It's just Fairfax
Fairfax.
County that bought that system.
Okay, thank you.
And how many voters did they have come in that day, do you know?
They had a 20% turnout, but that's the most I can do. They planned for
1,000 maybe?
5.
800? 1,000?
Well, how many
That's
voters?
why they ran it.
5%?
They thought they would have a 5% turnout. They had 20.
And do we know the total number of voters?
I think they
In
had.
Fairfax?
I thought they had 3,000 or 4,000 registered voters in that precinct, and they had about 1,000.
Yes, they had. I think they had
It
about
was a
3,000.
consolidated precinct, though.
Because that's what surprised me, that they only had 2 poll books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a large.
David, you had an issue under new business.
Yeah, I think actually, Gracie, did you have
Well,
something first?
I wanted to ask. I know that Nahid is the acting secretary until we elect a new secretary, and I want to just. They're not the canvas. Didn't Nahid was? Did we
She was
nominated her
secretary to the canvas.
Okay, can we extend that until we nominate a secretary? That way we have a secretary till next, the next meeting.
Next meeting, we're
Yeah.
going to elect.
So I just wanted to see if we could extend that. Do I need a motion for that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I
Okay.
think
Well, is there a difference that was
Well-
to the canvas board?
yes.
She's
It's a
out.
separate. It's a separate. There's separate issues. One was secretary to the board itself, and one is to be the
It's not a
secretary to the canvas. And Nahid was appointed to be secretary to the canvas, and either at this meeting or next meeting, the board needs to appoint a new secretary. So a new secretary needs to be appointed to fill out the term
To be elected.
to be elected.
Yes. To fill out the term. I know there was a lot of email discussion back and
Yeah.
forth. I thought
I
it
was
was,
just,
I
I just
thought
want
it was going to be at the
clarification.
next meeting.
Yeah, no, I did too. I just want clarification that I thought since she had been elected secretary during the canvass that carry on till the next time someone's elected.
It was for the canvas. We have we elected officers for the canvas. I was elected president of the canvas. It was a whole new election. You know what I mean?
They're different. They're different
Okay,
positions.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So can we extend it so we make sure we have a secretary between now and February after we have an election? If Nahid would be the secretary till then, can we do that?
Nahid is the secretary of the canvas.
No, you're talking about for the board.
No.
Oh, okay. So if there's something to do with the boards, he's the secretary.
She's secretary of the canvas.
Right. That's what I'm trying to
Right.
get
They're
clarification
Board of
on.
They're telling you no, she's not the secretary for the board unless we do something.
Right.
Okay.
Or the acting secretary for the board.
That was my. I thought she was the acting secretary till we elected a new secretary. I was under that impression.
They're two different elections. One is to the board, and one is for the board of canvassers. just
The
so
major
happens-
work of the secretary is at the canvas.
No, I
because
understand that.
They have to sign everything, you know.
No, I understand
Yeah,
that, but
I mean, that's why it
wanted-
was important to get that filled, you know. But they're two separate entities, if you will.
Did you want to make a motion?
I don't think, is there anything that we haven't done in terms of campus stuff that,
No, you just finished it.
okay, yeah, I mean, in terms of signing, obviously Naheed would be signing it.
So can we do the secretary now? Or are we going to do that in
We
February?
were going to do it at the February meeting,
Okay.
but what is the sense of the board?
May I make a suggestion? I would like to suggest that we extend Naheed's status as acting secretary for the canvas to include the board between now and the February meeting and elect the permanent secretary in February.
That'd be fine.
Second.
Third.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I have a new business item.
Mr. Naaman made a suggestion, and then I heard a second to a motion. I did
It
not
was
hear
not
an actual
heard a
motion.
motion.
Okay, so can
So I'll make it a motion.
yeah, we do it as a motion.
I mean, I was hoping to do it informally, but whatever, you know. Can you,
I don't think things like that can be done informally.
okay,
Do you want me to do the motion? I'll be happy to do the motion.
well, okay, that's fine.
Okay, so I'll do the motion to make it formally that we extend Naheed's position as campus secretary to the next meeting of February to be the acting secretary.
And I second.
And Denise seconded.
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, what I've just distributed and is a proposed amendment to the bylaws, which I know under the bylaws cannot be adopted today, cannot apply to our current situation, but can apply to the future. And it is an amendment to the bylaws to address a situation that we were just in, that the bylaws does not address, as to what happens if there is a vacancy for an officer position. The bylaws on one side of the page are the current bylaws, where you see where it says Article 1 and Article 2. And you'll see that Article 2.2, which discusses A discusses the president, B discusses the vice president, and C discusses the secretary. In each case, it requires that there be an election within the first 20 days of a new board term. And what I'm proposing as an amendment is to add a D that says that if there is a vacancy for a board officer, that there would be an election within the first 20 days of that vacancy, following the same 20 days that is used for the other officers.
You mean under section 2.2?
Could I ask why 20 instead of 30? It means there's a special meeting that has to be called.
I only did it because the other ones are 20.
No, I see that. It's
and the 20
consistent.
and the 20.
But-
I think that the 20 in A comes from the statute. I think that the 20 for the vice president and the secretary was probably done to be consistent with the 20 in A. But my own. Well, I don't know whether it's appropriate to have the discussion now or to have the discussion next month. My own thought is that I'm sure that there's a reason that long predates my service that requires the secretary and the president be of a different political party, and that in a way it's kind of a check and a balance. And I don't think that the minority party should have to have the uncertainty of when the election will be. It happens that no one really anticipated a situation like we have now. For the future, my thought is that we would. I was going to just propose to be consistent with what is there already.
Section 2.1 new members, it's 30 days. It's just interesting that it's not consistent.
No, it's Section 2.1 is 30 days
For new members.
getting your commission. You get sworn in.
Must be sworn in.
But it's still within 20 days of the new board term is
I'm
when
not
we
arguing
let you
about
off.
it, David. I
Yeah.
just thought it was.
Well, and
But
as far as I'm concerned, if it was the next, if it was within 30 days, I'd be fine.
for the next meeting.
Since
Well,
this
yeah.
is a proposed amendment to the bylaws, which I believe need 30 days before there's action, is that not, am I wrong on that?
I don't remember the amount of time, but it is to be
order
taken
to
up at the
amend-
next regularly scheduled meeting.
Right.
The next regular, okay.
Right. Which
May,
would be,
may I
yeah.
ask, as just as a matter of courtesy, that we have this and let's review it and come up with discussions and discuss it at
February.
next month's meeting.
Sure.
When we'll take up the issue of the election.
Yeah, no, that's more than courtesy. That's what the bylaws call for.
I meant I just wanted to, not get into discussion at this point.
Okay.
Okay. That is it for the regular agenda. What, yeah, Mike?
Just very quickly, I noticed that the staff about 12 linkages to learning children records for Christmas.
Pardon me?
Oh, really?
Sorry, what did he say?
Yeah, the
Wanted
staff
to extend
adopted
my
12
appreciation
kids
for that.
with linkages
okay.
to learning for
Thank you.
Christmas.
Wow,
Well, that was very nice of the staff.
that was.
Yeah.
Is that the staff as a whole, or that individual staff members?
It was each individual staff member chose to participate
That's great.
if they wanted to.
If they wanted to do it, no, that's great.
A wonderful organization of which we have Mr. Subin to thank for creation of linkages to learning and spearheaded that whole effort, and it's been fabulously successful. So
Folks like the staff.
thank you for pointing that out. What is the sense of the board for executive session? Do you want to? It's getting dark. I mean,
Can we stay long enough to hear why it's an executive session?
we have a couple of issues for executive session. We have personnel
No.
and budget.
No, what I'm saying is that we have one executive session item where I inquired as to whether it was a personnel item, and the answer was yes, and it would be explained in executive
Can we
session.
wait until next month, or is it important to have it today? That's my question. Can we wait until next month?
I don't know enough to know.
It's
Why don't we adjourn this one and go into executive session?
well, we need motions to do all those things, so that's why I'm asking what you want to do.
Okay, I'll move that we adjourn and go into executive session.
I
You
second.
joined? Yeah.
Who seconded
Executive board meeting.
No, hold on.
executive session?
Yeah.
Okay, now.
Now you can do it.
Okay, I move that we accept the executive session meetings, minutes from, was it December? December
15th, I think it
15th, 2014.
I second.
All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I now need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second.
Aye.